What's up everyone, and welcome to a special segment known as TFS Boost Fab, everything you needed to know about the automotive performance fabrication industry. Now this is part 2 of how to build a forward-facing turbo manifold, so in case you missed part 1, click on this video card right up here and it'll take you straight over there so you can get yourself caught up and well-versed in what we're doing with. Now we got to finish it off, but to recap, let's take a look at exactly what we went through in part 1. We have long radius 1.5" schedule 40 pipe. We have short radius 1.5" schedule 40 pipe. We have flanges. We have a straight section. We have pretty much everything that we need to get done when I place the turbo in here. I've taken a pretty good guess on the height that I need to have it at. I want a whole lot of involvement going on in here. I want to see a lot of tubes. I don't want to necessarily want the clean, two here kind of, ram horn concept. I mean, you could buy one of those off the shelf, so what's the point of getting a custom built? So I am going to actually stagger into the firing order of the ports themselves. It looks like we need maybe about 5 3/8 of an inch, maybe 5 1/4, somewhere in there. This comes all the way up to 5 1/2. Now this can definitely change with the way that you clock it. Tack. Complete. Now there are two things on here that I do not like. First of all, runner number 1 is way too short. It actually doesn't match, and it won't match the pulse length of the other runners that are on there right now. So runner number 1 has to be refabricated. And the second thing is, we noticed on runner number 3 there was a significant gap down below where it comes close to the head flange. I have to go back and actually redo that and refit that, because that gap is unacceptable. To apply as many tacks as possible while it's on the vehicle to maintain its position, because when we start welding, it's going to warp, it's going to distort, it's going to shift every single position. So we need to make sure that we have as many as possible on the vehicle as it sits like this. Now let's finish it up. So right now, I'm going to grab a hold of some filler rod. I'm going to grab the TIG once again, and we're going to start tacking everything in place. Now, each time I tack, I'm going to ensure that the position of the turbo and everything doesn't move due to distortion. Now ideally you want to have one tack, one at 12 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock, one at 9 o'clock positions respectively, no matter which way it is rotated on the pipe. This will actually reduce the amount of distortion and hold everything else together in place. So remember, minimum of 4 tack welds. Alright, so we have our manifold off the car. We separated it from the turbo, of course, and now we can actually get to fixing that runner number 1 and the runner number 3 gap, which is down here. Now, in order to do all of this, I'm going to go ahead and just fix it up to my purge block, which we made in a previous episode, and you can click the video card right up there in the corner and it'll take you straight over to it if you want to check out how to make them. But, of course, in this video, we're going to show you how to use one of them. So the purpose essentially of the purge block itself is to actually dissipate some of the heat, minimize the distortion, and more importantly, minimize warping. So when you affix it to a gigantic aluminum block like this, it keeps that flange warping down to an absolute minimal, if none at all. So the other part of it is we have these perch ports which line up to each one of these individual runners, courtesy and feeds argon courtesy of a hose inlet, or it could be an outlet too if you use a purge on the let's say on the actual flange side of it. So now that we have it fixed up here, what we're going to attempt to do is knock this runner number 1 off, because it's just on there with nothing more than just a couple of tack welds. So as soon as I get all of this fixed down nice and tight, we're going to get all of that set up. Now getting all of those off there is kind of difficult to do, but sometimes it might actually go easy, so we're just going to try and attempt to bust it off and feel with a hammer. It might actually come loose. There we go. Now the rest of these are intact and everything's good. So I might actually throw a few extra tack welds down here now that I have a little bit more access to it. That should be enough to actually hold everything together, and I actually like the positioning of all of it. So let's get back on and fixing this runner number 1. I want to kind of match that wild style that we have going on here, and more importantly, we need to make sure that it actually matches the same length or the same pulse length as all of the other runners here. Now, after careful consideration and a few measurements, I've decided I want to bring this runner up just a little bit higher to match this kind of setup that we have here. Somewhere in between this height and this height is right about where I want this to land. So we're going to have to cut a straight section to come off of that first runner. And somewhere down in here, we're actually going to change direction of it. And that'll actually help add to the length of it. So somewhere in here, once we get this piece cut, we're going to find out our spacing in here as well. And we'll figure out that extra little angle, or that kicker angle, that we're going to have in here as well. So let's start by cutting this piece here. That looks to be about 2 inches, but of course we're going to check with our tape measure here. That's about 1 3/4 inches for where I want it to sit. So yeah, let's go cut 1 3/4 inches piece. Maybe that'll get us pretty close. I think that'll satisfy. Alright, so we have our clean and tapered edge on it. Hold this up here. That looks pretty good. Yeah, we're just kind of winging this one too. So let's drop down a tack or 2 down here. Actually, I'm going to throw only 1 on there just in case I want to change this up. Off the elbow. Let's see, we'll put it somewhere in here. I think I'll just kind of aim it off toward the port there. Kind of keeps with that style that we have going on. That already looks a lot better. Now let's grab another elbow here. Say that it needs to go somewhere around down here. And I'm going to assume that with one of these 45s that we have on here, this will actually get us pretty close. So let's take kind of a wild guess here. Once again, we need to have, of course, this is the equivalent of at least 3 elbows worth of the length of the each elbow of it as its radius swings. And then we add all of our straight pieces. When we add all of these together, it should come out to about the same length of all of this. So I'm kind of running all of this in my head here, but it's kind of where we're running at right now. I think I'm going to break down these 2 tacks on here, and I'm going to actually set this up as a straight piece and kind of figure out which way we need to go on this one. So let's cut that down and see if we can figure this one out. All right, I'm going to get my marker ready on this one. I got both pieces cut down a little bit. We're going to try and utilize this 45. This is a little extra long here just to make sure that I get everything right in place. And then I cut down roughly, it's about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches, somewhere in there that protrudes from the actual runner number 1 itself. So I'm going to kind of set these 2 up here, and we're going to see how close we are. And right now I can see definitely that we're going to need to do some trimming here. We're going to have to kind of work this a little bit to get it to fit right in place where it needs to be. So you notice that the angle of this elbow right here does not match the angle of this elbow up top. So in fact, what it really does is kind of go straight up just like this. And this is roughly the angle that we're going to need to cut out of here. So we're going to set up the flat disc one more time, or excuse me, the cutoff wheel one more time, and get this trimmed down to length. And as soon as we have these angles matching, it's just a matter of actually dropping by cutting this section down a little bit and getting it to actually drop in place, and then we'll fit our angles. But it looks like we're going to be pretty close on that one, and that's just about what we need to get this done. I'm going to get my marker ready once again. Set up our elbows. See if I can do this where you guys can actually see it. Now my angle at this piece of pipe up top here is pretty close. We're going to need probably to do just a little bit of trimming just to get it to face and fit up dead on where it needs to be. But for right now, it's we're pretty close. So let's work on this one a little bit. Looks like about 3/4 of an inch needs to come off just to get it to sit right. So let's mark out roughly 3/4 of an inch. Remembering the golden rule here, we can always take metal away, but we can't necessarily always put it back on. So we're going to kind of undercut it just a little bit. Kind of eyeballed it, but you know, if it doesn't work out, then we'll just cut tacks. We'll, you know, measure it all up and get it all on there anyway. But let's go get this cut to length real quick. Alrighty, we'll set up once again here. Let's see where I got. Ooh, looks like I came up a little bit too short on that one. So we have a couple of different options here. One, we can definitely cut this piece off and we can see if we can get the right length on it. But the way I'm holding them up here, it looks like I'm actually not going to achieve that angle as I would like to, and I don't really want to cut a little sliver to go in there. That's just kind of an unnecessary weld. So, you know, maybe we'll just kind of wing this one. Maybe we can rearrange a little bit here, and maybe we can come up with something that'll work here. See if we go straight off of there. Maybe we can go right into the head there. Actually, it looks like we can. So I'm just going to kind of run with this for just a quick moment. Get a tack on here, I can actually kind of get a better answer, a better look at everything. So let me get this semi lined up, maybe kind of close to about where it would land, and we'll just drop a tack down on it. I got some hands I can work with here. So as I'm looking at it right now, if I just cut a straight piece to go straight into the head there, just a little bit longer than the piece that's on there, it looks like we might actually get this one. So let me take my tape measure here, and I'm going to measure that out, cut it, and then we'll just slide that in there and see if we can get them all to butt up and mate correctly to where right where I want them to. We may have actually saved a whole lot of work on this one. So let me go get this cut real quick and we'll see where we're at. Alright, one last tack weld. And there's one revamped runner number 1 that matches the rest of this manifold in both looks and pulse length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back up after these tacks cool just a little bit, and we're going to go back and actually put some tacks down with some filler rod, and then we get to clean all this up and start welding all of it. So we'll let this cool down for just a minute, and we'll start filling it in with some rod. Alrighty, with those few extra tack welds on, we're going to give it just a little bit of a bath here in acetone to clean it up, prep it, and get it ready. Now, if we were actually going to have a nice polished finish on here, or a nice clean shine on it, then we would have actually polished all these up with a wire wheel and possibly the buffer before getting to actually tacking them all together. But since this is going to go for a ceramic coat finish, we want to kind of police some of those temperatures that go on under the hood and whatnot. And of course, having less temperature escape from the manifold will help the turbo spool a little bit quicker and get it under control, because this is technically a street-driven car, even though we have a forward-facing manifold on it. There's nothing really wrong with that, but we want to try and utilize, you know, science as much as possible. So keeping the hot gases in the manifold and directing them straight to the turbo without too much of chance of them escaping or rapidly cooling before they get there is really a good thing. So this is going to have a full ceramic coat, and of course, even though we're probably going to throw down some really nice pretty welds on it, it's all going to get sandblasted and coated anyway, so we're not going to worry too much about the appearance. All we really want is it nice, clean, and neat. Alright, let's get welding. Alright, now a couple of things here before we get welding. One, you need to have your argon line hooked up to your purge. Okay? So it's going to fill this part up with argon gas on the inside, so it will be back shielded, or what we call back purging. So this is your purge line that comes in. I have it running about 10 CFH right now because we have quite a few gaps and whatnot that have to get closed off. Now the best thing here is you need to start by attacking the largest sections, or the sections where the most gas is going to be evacuated, so that way most of it will stay in the part if all of this is closed off. So in order to do that, I've already cleared or covered the flange here with PTE or PET tape. Get that right. Covered it with PET tape so that way the gas will fill up here. Some of the oxygen will get pushed out from the areas that are gapped on the inside here, and then we can start welding all of this together. Now I'm kind of particular about how I like my welds, so I'm actually going to start by welding down the seams on each one of these, and then we're going to weld the flange straight to it. So the other thing that I've done is I switched out my number 8 gas lens for my number 12 FUPA cup, my Furic cup, which this thing is just fantastic for providing really awesome gas coverage. So as always, get comfortable when you're ready to weld. We're going to set up here and try and get as much to hold everything together here as I can to get myself in a really good position to start welding this. And then after that, it's just a matter of just buzzing all of this together and making sure that we get each individual weld one by one all set up and ready to go. So we're going to get a little bit of coverage on the inside here. The argon's turned on, it's starting to fill it up. And right about the time where I can feel some of it kind of escaping from the side of there, I'm going to start welding. Alrighty, welding is complete, except for the wastegate flange. So we're going to take it back off of here, mount up our turbo, and then get it back onto the car real quick so we can actually mock up and get everything in place. But we're pretty close to being finished with this one here, so let's get on the wastegate. Alright, with everything fit back up onto the car, what we need to do is figure out where our wastegate is going to go. Now, this is a unique situation right now because our customer is currently still rocking the old school tile 2-bolt 38. So what we need to do, there's nothing wrong with using this, of course, but since they are rather dated and we need to consider future upgrades, what we're going to do right now is adapt it to the 44mm V-band and send that into the tile 2-bolt 38. So what we need to consider here, for one, is where we're going to place it. We don't have enough space on the other side there to comfortably place all of this assembly there. A single 44 would make it, so we have to switch it over onto this side. And what I'm going to do is kind of aim it up for this general area because there's not as much heat over there and we'll still have clearance for the radiator, fan, and condenser all in the half-size form. So I'm basically going to set this up and kind of point it downward, or at least down toward the ground where we're going to build the actual dump tube itself for it. And at the same time, we're going to consider that we will or will not have enough space to actually put the new 44mm in there when it's actually time. So if we get it lined up to where I can see that there is space between the head of this wastegate right here and the actual tube or the pipe off of runner number 4, then we're good to go. Then we'll make it in there. So what I'm essentially going to do is just kind of hold this up here and say, yes, I like this, or no, I don't. Which in this case, I do like where it is placed, and we're going to take the manifold back off of the car once again so we can get our hole cut and start working this wastegate out. Now, there are quite a few different ways that you can cut out the hole for the wastegate port. Now, in this case, I like to set it up inside of my mill so I get a nice, clean, even, neat cut. But you can use a hand drill, you can use, with a standard hole saw on it. Just remember, you gotta use low speed on it and make sure that you take your time to actually get through there. Otherwise, the stainless steel will absolutely destroy that hole saw, and you'll need to go out and get another one. Make sure you also have plenty of lubricant on there or cooling to allow it to cut efficiently. So the angle that I chose on this one to actually get it down inside of there is so that we can cut into it without actually getting rid of the section of the merge there where they actually merge together and create the merge bullet. We didn't want to cut through that, so I chose to actually go down at an angle, which means I had stepped down the hole saw size down at least, I believe it was 2 sizes down. This is an 1.5 inch hole saw, but that's still enough room at that angle to fill the entire space of the size of the pipe for the wastegate port, but not cut into the actual merge section itself. So now that we have this all set up, let's get these deburred and cleaned up, and we'll get the wastegate port welded on. All right, so I'm going to take the wastegate and we're going to stick it up in here. I'm going to get it flush with as many places as possible, or spaces as possible, against the actual collector itself. I'm just going to kind of hold it up here. I'm going to make sure that we maintain our distance around this side, and also at the same time, if we clear our space, if we kind of draw an imaginary line between the actual wastegate housing and the flange itself, we know that we'll clear a newer style 44 mil if we ever decide to put it in here. So what I'm going to do is make sure that we're actually clear on all spots everywhere around here. And in order to cut this out, we're going to have to notch it by hand. Now up top here, we're going to have to do a pretty decent cut just to get it to fit right. And of course on the opposite side here, we'll have to do the exact same thing. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand notch these with the grinder, and you'll see me do that, but I'm kind of following a visual here which is based off of essentially off the tube notching video. Same kind of concept here, but I'm just kind of tracing the amount of space that I need, or about what looks like the amount that's going to go need to be cut out here and then slide into the flange. So again, I'm going to cut this out entirely by hand with the cutoff wheel on the end of the grinder, and then we're going to fill and shape it with a flap disc. So as long as we have it set up right where we need to be right here, we're good to go. So let's get this now that we have it traced out and start cutting it out and see how close we can get. Alright, after a quick cut here, let's just do a fast fit check here, and I'm going to see how close I am. Now, judging by the looks of it, I got a pretty decent fit here, not very many gaps, and at this point I don't need to do any more cutting. I just need to do some contour work with the grinder. So I'm going to make a couple of marks here and just kind of notate the areas that I need to focus on. I need a little bit more radius up top here to go around this pipe, and I need just a little bit more on the opposite side down here just to go around that one. So just a little bit of radius. We're going to switch over to the flap disc, and I'll get those notched out and fit just perfect right where they need to be. Alrighty, so after the flap disc work there, I'm satisfied with the fit enough to get a good tack weld on there. I'm going to need just a little bit more tungsten stick out here to get into that really tight space. Now what I'm going to attempt to do here is we're going to throw down just a couple of little tack welds and get it all in place, and then throw it back on the car to make sure that everything actually fits where it's supposed to. So we'll just drop a little tack on one side here. Something to burn just hard enough just to get one on there. Now this wastegate sits at a rather unique angle, so what I did to make sure that I hold it in the right spot, or theoretically the right place, is to prop it up with these aluminum blocks. And that should actually help us be able to work it and contort it and twist it and, you know, manage to get it into the right place there. So where it looks like I have just about right where I need it, I'm going to throw maybe a tack down on the back side there. I'm pretty confident we're close. I'll toss one back here real quick. that should do the trick. So what we're gonna do is take a look inside of here. I don't have any significant gaps or anything bad going on with it. So now that we have it kind of mounted up in the right position or somewhere near the area that I want to put it in, let's go toss it back on the car and make sure that we have clearance everywhere that we need to. All right, we'll slide it on in here. Not bad. This is a fit that I can live with. So now we just take it back off and let's get it all completely welded up. Now this section of the manifold, the space is just a little bit limited, so I had to switch up to my number 8 gas lens and put my stubby cap on there. This will allow me to get access to all of these areas. But since there's less coverage with the number 8 gas lens versus the Furic number 12, we have to kind of weld in short spurts here. So just a lot shorter and a lot less weld than you would normally do. Allow it to cool down, make sure the gas stays over it during your post flow. So it's going to take a little bit to get all this welded up here, but as soon as we finish this section here, we'll get the V-band itself welded on, and this manifold is done and ready for coating. So I'm kind of like in a hurry, kind of anxious to get this finished up here. So let's power on through this and we'll get it off the ceramic. Alright, now one last thing, as is with all of my products, the piece de resistance must have the brand tag on it. I mean, why go to all this effort and build such a really awesome manifold and nobody knows who did it? So if you have your own brand tag, you should definitely consider putting it on and branding your product with your name or your symbol or whatever it is that you have. So in this case, let me get this set up real quick here. This is definitely my favorite part as well. Couple little autogenous tacks just to get it all kind of stuck in place there. As soon as that cools for a second here, I'm going to go ahead and grab my hammer and get this tapped in. Nice and easy like. Grab hold of my rod here. Here's the last one. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. Let's get this off the ceramic. So did you make it all the way through both videos? Well, if you did, congratulations. Let me be the first one to welcome you to the finish line. That was a pretty long set, but now you have a pretty good idea of exactly what it takes to build a forward-facing turbo manifold, or technically any turbo manifold in general that's not built on a jig, because the same rules and concepts apply. Now, if you have any more questions about turbo manifold fabrication, go ahead and drop them in the comments box below. You can also find me on Facebook.com/thefabricator series, Instagram at the.fabricator, or you can send me a message on the fabricationseries.com website. I take emails, comments, whatever the case is. You can always get a hold of me, and I always try to get back to you. If you want to check out more episodes related to the automotive fabrication market, check out this hashtag, TFS Boost Fab. That'll take you up to every single one of them that's uploaded as they upload, so as long as you know how to search, you'll be able to find it. I want to thank you guys for watching as always. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fabrication Series YouTube channel for more really awesome content, and I will see you guys on the next episode.